okay, I don't think anyone out there would argue with me when I say I didn't like The Last Jedi. And one of the key reasons was because of how they treated Luke Skywalker. Now, for me, the biggest problem with Luke Skywalker wasn't so much that he had isolated himself on Ahch-To and become a hermit and shut himself off from the Force. I get what they were going for with that. I think it was kind of an interesting angle overall. But it was the conclusion of the arc in that film and the conclusion of that character's arc over the span of the Skywalker saga. It made no sense for him to die. It literally made no sense. 0 cents. Period. Full stop. 100% no sense for him to die. Rian Johnson just wanted to kill Luke Skywalker off because he didn't know what to do with him at the end point. He didn't know how to keep the character going, which made no sense because he effectively at that point had already set him up for a massive return. See, JJ, and there's a kind of a brief spoiler here for The Rise of Skywalker, JJ had Luke come back, basically completely undo every single thing he did in the last movie by saying, I was wrong, I gave in to fear, and then he raised his X-Wing and presented it to Rey. What fans wanted at the end of The Last Jedi was for Luke to raise his X-Wing to raise Red 5 from the ocean of Ahch-To and pilot it to Crate to confront Kylo on his own in the flesh, to be that Deus Ex Machina scene where all hope is lost and here comes Luke Muff Skywalker because he now realizes his place, his purpose once again. Rian Johnson, however, disagrees with a lot of people who have said that he destroyed the character of Luke Skywalker, and he's responded, which is fascinating, which also goes to tell me that there is actually, I think at this point, no real way that Rian Johnson's ever coming back to Star Wars. And I've said, and I will put it out there again, just to be on the fair side, I think the movie was directed well, technically speaking. The narrative was not very good. Akbar deserved better. Hashtag justice for Akbar. If you agree with me, I want that in the comment section. I think a lot of you are going to agree with me. Anyway, this is what's going on here. So Rian Johnson strongly disagrees with renewed Luke Skywalker criticism. And you know what? Here's the thing. Of course he would. Of course he would disagree with renewed Luke Skywalker criticism. This guy has disagreed with any and all criticism aimed at his movie. It's been 2 years. Now, granted, it's been a long 2 years. Long 2 years of criticism at that movie. Man, honest to God, I was so happy when The Rise of Skywalker came out because I was so ready for it to be over. I was so ready for the saga to be done. I just wanted it to be better than The Last Jedi. I didn't think it was going to be as good as it was. And yes, that's my personal opinion. And so I'm very happy with the way it turned out. But at the end of the day, it's like The Last Jedi exists. And yes, the movie does retcon it a bit to the point of where it doesn't make it null and void, but it makes like 92% of it null and void. And again, in a way that a lot of fans have been noticing. But again, so let's take a look here at what's being said here. So according to this article on Cinema Blend, it says here, it's no secret that when Rian Johnson took over Star Wars for The Last Jedi in 2017, many fans were unhappy with some of his decisions. You think we were unhappy? Have you seen my rant about Disney ruined Star Wars with The Last Jedi? I mean, like, that is not scripted. That was legitimately me getting super freaking angry while doing a review of the movie and then going, hold on, I'm going to finish this review, then I'm just going to bitch. And I bitched, and a lot of people saw it. A lot of people saw it, which is again why 2 years of that, why I wanted it to be, I wanted it to be better. Anyway. Episode 8 is perhaps known as the most divisive film among fans of the franchise, yet Rise of Skywalker has just created a divide between audiences and critics. With the Skywalker saga now concluded, fans are still debating about Johnson's take on Star Wars, and the writer-director is engaging in the discussion. Keep in mind that 2 years ago, when people were criticizing him over the whole Force doppelganger thing, he actually trolled them by pulling out an old, like, Star Wars Legends book about Jedi powers and going like, see guys, it was in the EU. I pulled it from the EU. I mean, the whole, again, Rise of Skywalker and Mandalorian spoilers here. The Force healing thing was new on screen. Not new in Star Wars canon, but new on screen. And that confused people too. So to be fair on that front, JJ pulled the same thing out of a hat that Rian Johnson did. It just seems to make more sense how JJ did it. Anyway, So it says here that one fan took to Twitter to share an explanation by user Luke Skywalker about the fatal flaws in character interpretation concerning Mark Hamill's Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi. In the essay of sorts, the fan points out why he believes Rian Johnson misread the iconic character. He first cites 1983's Return of the Jedi, where he explains how Luke faces his final hurdle when he finally masters his major character flaw of impulsive emotional action and puts down his saber. In that famous moment against Palpatine, the fan notes that he then and there became a true hero, that he'd rather risk his life than turn to the dark side. He surpasses his father's weakness, and his character arc is complete. Yet when we meet Luke in The Last Jedi, he is flawed. The fan cites how Mark Hamill's character, considering murdering on Kylo and lying to Rey about it, forgets everything about Skywalker's character arc. Rian Johnson did respond with the following words. He says here, "I understand that point of view, but I completely disagree. In fact, I think it disrespects the character of Luke by treating him not as a true mythic hero overcoming recurring wounds and flaws, but as a video game character who has achieved a binary, permanent power-up." Now, again, the Force in and of itself is not something that's been fully explained in Star Wars movies and television shows and games. We accept it for what it is. We suspend our disbelief enough for what it is. And that's fine. That's okay. I mean, at Harry Potter, we don't know necessarily where the magic comes from. Just if you wiggle your wand at it and say some words, things happen, right? But we believe that rule to be true. I will say this though, look, kind of an off topic thing, but the way Full Metal Alchemist handles where the alchemy power comes from, damn, that was dope. And I really appreciate the way they handled that. But anyway, back on point. When you look at what he's saying here about Luke, he's not wrong. And that is something that I think a lot of people out there have kind of forgotten. Okay, but to understand that, we have to go back to the original trilogy. Sorry, to the prequel trilogy. So in the prequel trilogy, we meet Anakin Skywalker, which we meet him as a boy, and then a young man, and then an adult over the span of the trilogy. In Attack of the Clones, we can start to see him being manipulated a little bit, how he's giving into fear, how he has impulse control problems. You watch the Clone Wars TV show, you know all about Anakin and his impulse control problems, which they don't really argue as much as a character flaw, as much as it is a character trait, or a net positive in many cases. The episode with the Mandalorians, trust me, the way that episode ends is like dope because it's Anakin being Anakin, and it's being Anakin in a fun way. Because again, it's opening the door, but it's still a cool moment nonetheless. So what we have here is we then see Anakin become Vader. We see him become fully manipulated by Palpatine to become Vader, and then he's Vader for the next about 25 years while they're controlling the galaxy. And then here comes Luke, and Luke turns his father back to the light side. Anakin completes his arc by destroying the Emperor on the Death Star. Luke completes his arc by overcoming his father's weakness, the impulse control, and the fact that he still went to the dark side. He did not give in to the same temptation his father did. Even though they had very similar things on the line, Anakin cared about Padme and the kids. Luke cared about his friends and also the rebellion and also the galaxy. So maybe like the scale is not necessarily the most even, but we can at least understand like the playing field, right? Or what's at stake. So there's that. And then you go and you look at Luke's arc in The Last Jedi. Luke gave in to fear. He gave into, those emotions that he was told not to do. And he felt embarrassed and he felt terrible for his actions. And so he then went and did the only thing he could think of doing, which was to shut himself off. Now they retcon that in the Rise of Skywalker beautifully, I might add. Beautifully. I love it, right? I love that moment so much. I loved it so much, I forgot to mention it in my spoiler review. And believe me, I've read your comments, guys. So you have that moment. That moment is beautiful. That moment is great. JJ nailed that moment really, really, really well. So you have that. But if you tie it into what Rian Johnson was attempting to do, it does make a lot of sense. And had Rian Johnson not killed Luke off at the end, it would have been complete. It would have been fine. If he wouldn't have killed him off at the end of the movie, at the end of The Last Jedi, it would not have been received as negatively as it did, because it just made no damn sense. His death made no damn sense. specifically, there's one thing that I think about it would have made sense, but they kind of cut around it. And let me explain. So Luke, when he arrives on Crate, he walks in there, he interacts with Leia, he hands her the dice from the Millennium Falcon. Even though that was a forced projection or a forced doppelganger, she's still able to physically hold it in her hand, right? That does tie in ultimately to Rey and to Kylo and their force bond, because remember, that allows them to like interact with each other, especially in Rise of Skywalker, which again, probably one of my favorite scenes of that movie was that whole bit. But anyway, so you've got that. And then what you have is Luke going and engaging with Kylo striking him once, but it going through him. Now, when you cut back to the scene of Luke on Ahch-To, there's a shot where you can see his hand is kind of up like this. It's kind of up like this on its side. It's very quick, very brief. And I saw that originally. I thought, oh, he's been wounded because of the force bond. He was able to almost physically transport himself to that. It was definitely weird, but in 2 years, I've thought more about that. It makes more sense given now what we have seen, right? So now it would make a lot more sense to have that. The problem with it is, though, is that Rian Johnson cut around it, and without any explanation as to why he died. No explanation as to why, even in the Rise of Skywalker. It still was an undetermined plot hole, unanswered plot hole in that movie. And I guarantee you, like, they had probably thought a lot about how to answer that question, but couldn't get it into a way that made a lot of sense. So I think Johnson was on the right track ultimately with that, but he dropped the ball so massively at the end by attempting to be a bitch and subvert expectations. And that's what's happening here. So when he says that, he says here, that I understand the point of view, but I completely disagree with it. In fact, I think it disrespects the character of Luke by treating him not as a true mythic hero overcoming recurring wounds and flaws, but as a video game character who has achieved a binary permanent power-up. Dude, you gave him flaws, which is great. And then he overcame those flaws, which is great. And then you had the ball. You could have just not cut that scene the way you cut it. You trim it by 5 seconds, and then Luke is alive. He reaffirmed his faith with the Force. He opened himself back up. He became the hero that we knew. He is that legend. We know he's that legend. And then he's still around like, I can do whatever I need to do. He still would have had his flaws. He still would have had to contend with Kylo. He still would have had to have that redemption on his own right. That would have helped, I think, permanently really kind of aid Kylo's redemption. But look, let me be fair. I love the way they did it in the movie. I love the way they did it in The Rise of Skywalker. I really did. I never thought I wanted a Ben Solo redemption arc. I mean that, like, I walked out of that movie and I was like, no Kylo Ren. You can see, you might be able to see Kylo behind me. I'm not too sure. For the Force, yes, right there. For the Force Awakens, that's the only bit of Kylo Ren merch that I have. It's the only a bit of Kylo Ren merch I will allow myself to have because it's a poster. My girlfriend was like, "Oh, do you want like some Kylo Ren t-shirts?" And after the movie, and I said no. I was so angry at Kylo Ren. I'm like, no, I don't want it. I don't want it anywhere near me. I was so mad about Han Solo, but then they handled it in a way that I really loved in The Rise of Skywalker. And then when we got Ben, I liked Ben, and I'm like, oh, great. Anyway, Johnson bungled it because Johnson got in his own way because he wanted to subvert expectations enough to get in his own way. And that's where we find ourselves with this. He's going to come out and he's going to defend his character arc that he so terribly dropped at the end of that movie. Never mind all the other things that went wrong with that movie. I'm specifically talking about Luke. What we saw of Luke could have been redeemed in the third film. Should have been redeemed further in the third film. Luke coming out on Crate and doing what he did is a thing that legends are made of, 100%. And if he would have shown up in the flesh and died in the flesh there, that would have been cool. That would have been there. We would have had at least an explanation for the death. But him just fading off into nothing made no sense. And they had a year to fix it. That's why fans are mad. That's why fans are mad. The death made zero sense and nothing. And I have thought about this for 2 years, trying to find a way to justify it in my own head. But because I saw that shot of him kind of going like this, it blows everything out of the water. Go back and watch that scene again, and you can see that his hand is on his side, where, if I recall, where he was struck by the lightsaber. If that would have been the case and it would have actually had a physical impact, and would that change your mind a bit on that character arc? Would it change your mind a bit? Let me know down in the comments below. This has kind of been a long rant. Every time Rian Johnson opens his mouth about these movies and he tries to defend it, like, I'm trying to see it from his perspective. I really am. I still just get frustrated. Anyway, your thoughts, your opinions, let me know down in the comments below. I'll talk to you all later. Have yourself a great day. May the Force be with you. Thanks for watching. Hey, thank you very much for watching the video. If you want to keep the conversation going, and if you made it this far, you clearly do, come on in and join the Discord. Link is in the video description. Can't wait to see you there. Have yourself a great day, and peace out.